Hi there, and welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about fantasy books. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Great to see you with us here again today. Now, excitingly, as we begin a new book of the Wheel of Time, we're finally moving on to book 6, Lord of Chaos, today, and we've got some doozy of content for you. But man, Zach, it feels like, I don't know, forever since we've recorded together. I don't know if it's really been that long, but it just feels like it. How you
I
doing?
mean, I'm all right. It's been a little while. We've been busy here and there. We have a couple of things either that we've kind of recorded ahead of time in the past, or we will be recording ahead of time now because I know you're very busy this time of year. But
So
no,
busy.
it's a generally good thing. I will say if things seem a little weird or funky on my end today, it's because I'm still working out some new kinks after getting a new computer.
Ooh!
So I'm back
Congrats.
in the what you would refer to as the master race of Macs over PCs at the moment.
Absolutely.
Um,
Love it.
so it's very nice. It's working very well for me, but I do have a whole bunch of things plugged in different ways, and I'm still in transition of figuring out how I actually want all my setup to look.
Hey,
So,
we have our Patreon supporter Carrie with us today in the live recording. Love you, Carrie. Glad to have you here. She's validating that your audio is A plus.
well,
So
I'm
so
glad to
far your
hear it.
connections. Yeah, she's glad to hear it too. See.
Fair enough. How you doing, Dad?
I'm tired. I've been traveling a lot for work, and that's part of what I do sometimes. But this time of year, a lot of extra travel. People who've been watching our content on YouTube have noticed. I've been posting episodes recorded in Alaska, in the Midwest. Wherever I'm at, I'm still trying to throw out some short content. But today, I'm actually at home. I have my green screen. Everything's wonderful. Yeah, I have my green screen, so I put up a big orange blob today. I don't know what I was thinking.
I mean, it's orange. It could have been green. That could have been lazier. Could
Yeah,
have been a big green blob.
but I'm doing well. I don't have anything really to complain about. I'm still loving life and having fun. I saw you drinking something, Zach. What are you drinking today?
Um, I am surprisingly still working my way through that bottle of cognac, so it felt like a day to just sip on some of that. Simple but nice. You drinking anything, Dad?
Water. Yeah, I'm just drinking water today. I still on a weight loss plan, so a little less alcohol. Haven't had anything in a week. Don't plan to have anything for like the next 2 weeks.
You know,
Seriously.
I'm proud of you. It's boring, but I'm proud of you.
And the wine in my house is we've got this backlog that's filling up because I'm not drinking it right now.
I mean, if you
Literally, there's
really,
2 extra cases waiting to be picked up at places we have memberships.
you could just like slap a label on that, send it down to me if you want.
Oh, that's very big of you.
I'll help
Appreciate
take it off. I mean, it won't go very quickly at my house either, but it's another place to store it, and that
that.
way, like, eventually you're down here. You don't have to worry about, oh, where do I get good wine? You just have the wine that you sent me already.
You are so thoughtful. Opening up your wine cellar as reserves. That's
Hey,
great.
that means something. If you can see my background, it's still a little bit of a mess because we are in transition with a number of things, how we're setting up things. So space is a hot commodity.
Okay. Well, I'll see for myself in a couple of months. Your mother and I are going to come on down and visit you down there. And I mentioned this actually on purpose in that one of the things we plan to do while we're together is live stream something just for our patrons.
Mm-hmm.
We are way overdue in new content for our Patreon supporters. So
Yeah.
we have a plan. It's going to be something fun we're going to do that will be, out there, a live stream that people will be able to connect with directly through Patreon. That's where it'll live stream to. So keep your ears out for that. That's for anybody Abercrombie tier and higher, that there'll be a chance to see Zach and I live. And that'll be fun. Which is kind of important because some people have started questioning, are you real? because they're seeing a lot of content with just me and I
I'm
talk
just
about
AI.
you. And
I get digitally
or
brought in actually.
or what have I done with you? Like, are you tied up in the basement somewhere? I don't have a basement, but it was funny. Someone actually commented on that. That was great.
Yeah, no, I exist. Surprisingly, all of us are still a little bit in shock over that. Um, but I look forward, especially if you are a Patreon, to proving it to you live when we hang out and I'm in person with my dad again, or rather, I guess
There you
he's in
go.
person with me.
I'll be with you. That's right, because I'm coming down to your casa. Very good. More and more people wondering about these things and having the chance to check us out in Discord, social media, and Patreon because our YouTube channel keeps growing. We're well over 500 subscribers now. And just the last few days picked up a number of new people in Discord. So great to have more people to chat with. Thank you for those of you who've joined us. We love having you here.
Absolutely.
Before we move into our content on the Wheel of Time, then, I would like to know, what are you reading now? What are you up to?
Okay, I'm gonna go through just a couple of quick recent updates because it has been a little while. I don't know which ones I've actually mentioned last time or this time, so I'm gonna go with what I think are the last few that I haven't mentioned. So I read through and finished Night Angel Nemesis. I think I may have finished it like a day before you did. I think that's funny. I then went on and read Proven Guilty, so the next Dresden book.
Good.
On to then Persepolis Rising. Still getting through The Expanse. I've got 2 more left there.
Yep.
Finished Morning Star, the 3rd book in the Red Rising
Okay.
series. Kind of the end of a trilogy, and then there's another set of books. So
All
there's
right.
a good end there. And then finally, of books I've finished lately, just a small little thing. I got around to reading Legends and Lattes.
Oh, that's on my TBR. Is
A
it as
fun little
good as
cozy
people say?
fantasy. It's okay. I think you have to go in with the expectation of what it is. Expect it to be, as it states, a novel of high fantasy and low stakes. There's a lot that doesn't really happen, but a lot that does happen, and so it's just kind of a feel good, easygoing story, predictable but still fine.
Okay.
It's not going to be my chosen genre, like subgenre forever, but I wouldn't mind reading something in this cozy fantasy every now and then. Finally, then, books I'm reading currently. We've got Gardens of the Moon, which is above me. I am making my way
Yes.
through that, starting Malazan. I've got behind me on the shelf there White Knight, getting back to more Dresden.
Great.
And then I'm currently listening to something a little more sci-fi than it is fantasy, Hyperion by Dan Simmons.
That's coming up on my TBR too. I've heard great things about it. Not very far into it yet?
I'm a good, maybe 4th.
Okay. All right.
It
Well,
is what
thanks
it
for
is.
that
I'm not going to
update.
spoil it for you.
Appreciate
What
it.
have you been reading, Dad?
Well, I started a few new books recently, so I did recently finish book 4 of Malazan, House of Chains. It was fantastic. I'm on a Malazan pause again while I read some other things. So one I'm reading right now is pictured down here to the side, center of our screen, The Return of the Knights by Gregory Contaxis. This is a self-published work of fantasy, and it's awesome. I'm really enjoying it. I'm a little over halfway through the book now. It's just book 1 of a series, so once I get done, then I have nothing else to read in it, which is always a bummer for me. I like to move right on, but I'll be looking forward to when he puts out the next book in this series, because this has been good. I'll do content on it when I'm done with it, but definitely enjoying this one. I could already tell people, go check it out. Go read this book, The Return of the Knights. Second, I've got 2 different Stephen King books that I'm reading right now.
The
One of
over
them
there
is
and the one over there?
Duma-Key. Yeah, Duma-Key I'm reading as a hardcover book, so I'm not getting through it as fast because I can only read it when I'm home. I don't take it on the road. But it's very interesting so far. I'm only like 6 or 7% into the book. Not very far. But it's already piqued my interest. The other one is right below me. You can see part of it, and that's 11/22/63. And this is the best Stephen King book I've read in a long time. I'm doing it via audio, and it's just mind-bogglingly good so far. I'm about 65% through it and want to know what's going to happen. It is so good. Carrie's read this one already. She's posting it in Discord, that she likes it. And I know some others, Jason in Discord, another patron, has read this before, really recommended it. So they're all right. It's excellent.
I don't want to give you any spoilers, but like, we know what's going to happen.
But do we? Because this is a book that features time travel. And can you change the past? So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes and how it plays out. Great book. Again, I'm doing it on audio, and tomorrow I'm getting in a car and driving 10 and a half hours for work.
So you're going to finish it.
I may just finish the book. I'll definitely have it finished before I make it back home by Wednesday night. So yeah, then I got to figure out what's next. All right, that's our books then, I think. It's still great to have so many fun things to read. I'll say one other thing about books. We did just finish our September Tri-Reader Tournament, and we featured self-published works. So there were a whole bunch of great self-published books that people had submitted. Find us on Twitter. Check out all those books that were in our bracket. Not just the ones that won, which were great books, but look at all of them there. There's some really good literature out there for people. And these were the most entertaining self-published books from SFF, people thought, and add some to your TBR.
And if you're going to check out a list, this is actually one of ours that's probably the better to check out, just because self-published books can be so hit or miss. Sometimes they're fantastic, and sometimes they really needed work and an editor. And this is kind of some of that, hey, a lot of various people thought these were entertaining.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that.
These have been vetted for you.
At least a little bit. You still might not like it, but you're allowed to not like what you don't like.
Right. All right, let's move into Lord of Chaos. And we're going to start today at the beginning. Shock. This
there
book
is
has
no
a prologue. Oh, nice.
Nor is there any ends.
Yeah. We get it. But it has a prologue. And the prologue, I love the prologues of these books because it's so much of catching up on this and this and this and this and this from all across the story before then you start following a few particular plot lines a little more deeply. So it's like you catch up on so much, but because this is book 6 already, there's a lot to catch up on. The prologue by itself is well over 50 pages. Which is more than we can do in one episode unless we want to do this to set a new record for how long an episode will be.
And we don't want to do that. So we're going to break it into like part 1, part 2, something like that.
And it will just be 2 parts. We'll get slightly more than half of the prologue covered today. We'll do the rest in our next episode.
Next book, we'll do 3 parts.
Possibly. Yeah, Carrie is, I think, on chapter 7 of this book. She's a first-time reader, and she's noting that the prologue was a book in and of itself. Just about, a little novella of value. But I have been looking forward to Lord of Chaos. It's one of my favorite books in the whole cycle, and it's also the longest. I looked up the stats. It's 6 pages longer than The Shadow Rising. So both of these are chunkers of books, but this one's the longest. And if you listen in audio at 1.0 speed, this one is 19 minutes longer than The Shadow Rising. I mean, they're very close.
Do you still listen to audiobooks at 1.0 speed?
I do. I am a purist. Once in a while, because I'm going to do something, collaborate with someone, I have to have something done by a certain time, and I'll speed up. And I hate every moment of listening to it fast.
I read faster than most audiobook narrators, so I tend to have to go just a little bit faster just to feel sane.
Well, with Lord of Chaos, why it's one of my favorite books is it really advances the story in a number of key ways. But the ending is amazing on top of all of that. There's a ton of material we're going to cover before we get there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be looking forward to talking about the ending of this book all through the book.
I predict no fewer than 4 of our spoiler rooms are going to be you talking about the end of this book.
But let's get started with this prologue now. We just got to dive in. So we begin with introductions to some fantastic new world building and plot developments as we get a point of view from frickin' Demandred. Okay, a Forsaken that we've seen a few times before. We've never been in his head before. We've never seen much of him. He's been kind of a secretive, on the fringe character. And now we're with him.
I have a weird thought here, actually. Have we seen him before?
We have.
I'm not sure we have.
Have we only seen him talked about?
I think we've heard about him, but we have not
I
seen
thought he
him
was
yet.
at one of the meetings of Forsaken in Teleron Riyadh.
I don't think so.
You might be right.
Because there was a meeting that had the one that Nynaeve and Birgitte spied on. Moghedien was also spying on it, and the men at that meeting, I believe, were Ravine and Samael.
Yeah, Carrie is thinking that you're right, Zach. He's only been referenced by name. So this might be the first on-screen moment for Demandred.
The reason that I think that it is the first on-screen is something spoilery that I remember about the fandom back in the day that I missed out on because I was too young and hadn't read it yet, but I heard about it later on. I can't talk about it right now, but maybe we'll get there in the spoiler room.
I know where you're going, and maybe we will. Very good. Well, we know Demandred's a Forsaken. We know of him. We know he's been out there doing something. Now we see him arriving via traveling. He's stepping out of a gateway at Thakandar, right on the slopes of Shayol Ghul. Now, this is Dark One territory. All the way. We learn here this was a beautiful location in the Age of Legends, but what we see right now is quite the opposite. It's a stronghold of the forces of shadow. Why, Zach, is this such a source of darkness and shadow?
Well, I mean, to be blunt, this is where the boar exists. This is where there is a physical place that, like, breaks to, hey, the Dark One's right there.
Yeah, the book explains that in an interesting way, that the boar isn't like physically truly here more than anywhere else in the world, but this is where it is most sensed. So it's like it's here, and this is definitely where the Dark One feels closest to the world. Which is, of course, why Demandred is here, because the Dark One has summoned him. So if you're going to go for a appearance before the Dark One, you come to Shayol Ghul.
Yeah.
We see that other things happen here. This is a place where Myrddraal, Trolloc, some other Shadow Spawn actually live, do things full time.
And going all the way back to the Eye of the World, if you remember, we've heard about Thakandari blades. These blades that the Myrddraal use that are forged in Thakandar, that's here.
The forge is here.
Like, tainted blades that really messed up Tam that one time. It's here.
And we learn how they taint those blades. They use humans in the process of making these weapons. We see it happening. Define used, Zach. How do they use the humans?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't they like quench them by stabbing them into people? It's not like, hey, dip it in the water or the oil or whatever liquid that you're tempering it in. It's like, no. Use their blood of the still living person.
Yeah. So you need a steady supply of humans to make all these weapons.
Which, like, super brutal. But also, there are other stories and legends and things throughout our history, throughout other fantasy and stuff, that do sometimes talk about, like, quenching a blade in someone, in a loved one, and the power that comes within. It's not a new concept, but it is a cool one.
Demandred has actually come here at this time because he was summoned. I mentioned that in some way, maybe through the dream or something. He knew he was to come and appear before the Dark One. And he's at the spot uh, where there's like, he's close to the tunnel access down into the heart of the Pit of Doom inside this mountain that is Shio Ghul. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But before he goes into it, he's taking time to look around. He hasn't been here for a while. You get the impression. He's been here before, but it's not like he hangs out at Thakandar. So he's just noting things around there. And then suddenly there's a Murdrel next to him. Just appears somehow. And has a name. This is made clear. This is significant. Murdrel don't commonly have a lot of personality, apparently.
They're
They just
eyeless
do their thing.
and lacking a lot else too.
This one, he holds himself with a little more significance, self-importance. He announces his name as Shaidar Haran, which is like old tongue that is totally recognizable to Demandred. It's like, that means Hand of the Dark. Wow. Sort of full of yourself, buddy?
Yeah, a lot of times you might be like, this guy thinks he's a little too self-important. Except Myrtle don't necessarily do that. So that's a little weird.
Right.
And if you're gonna do that, you wouldn't really do that in the place where you're closest to the Dark One. That's a great way to get, I'm not gonna say smitten, because that feels a little too holy, but like the equivalent.
The Murdrel certainly lorded over the Trollocs. They don't typically go around, apparently, lording it over Forsaken, or the Chosen, as they're called by the Dark. That's a good way to get, like I said, smote. Smited.
Speaking of, I think smited is actually the correct past tense of smite. But I like all the others better.
So Demandred does note this Shaidar Haran doesn't seem very intimidated. What's up with this dude? He literally says to Demandred, "Are you going to keep the Great Lord waiting?" He's like kind of chastising Demandred. It's like, dude's got some balls. Okay, I don't know if they really do. We're not going to go into that aspect of the Shadow Swan here today.
He may not. I don't even know if it's a he.
Shaidar Haran leads Demandred then down into the mountain. And Demandred notices something interesting. This is like a magical tunnel. And this is his POV. So he's remembering what he's seen in the past. That it doesn't matter who you are. When you come on into this tunnel, it kind of contracts enough so that by the time you get to the end, you have to hunch over. It's like you're bowing down in subservience as you come before the Great Lord. Neat trick, everybody bows. And it's not happening on this trip. Shaidar Haran is very tall for Murdrel, and the ceiling is staying like a couple feet above his head. Which, again, Demandred's like, weird. What's going on here?
If it weren't for the fact that it was terrifying, nice perk. Also, why has no one tried squatting?
I would imagine someone has, and it just got even lower. So I'd say don't squat, man. Don't squat. Before you know it, you're slithering. But what does this perhaps say about Shaidar Haran? As Demandred notices, it's not making him bow.
At the very least, Shaidar Haran might be more favored by the Dark than you are, Demandred.
Ooh, something's different. Something's funny going on.
That's always going to chafe the Chosen.
At the end of the tunnel, you open up and you're seeing literally the Pit of Doom. You're inside a volcano. There's this bed of molten lava out ahead of you, and then you look up the heart of the volcano, and now this is part of what's freaky. You don't see the sky of Thakandar like was outside. You see something else. Just a swirling mass of twisted dark colors and stuff. What? It's inexplicable, which is
I'm
always somewhat weird.
in a weird way. I always like to think of it as like this is one of the few places that is still kind of physical, but you can see outside the pattern.
Maybe. And the feeling of the dark one here is massively palpable. It's like, And I guess if you're on his team, it's kind of like terrifying and thrilling. If you're not on the Dark Lord's team, it's just terrifying. Demandred thinks about here, again, that this is where the boar is most sensed, but he can tell it is still blocked.
Mm-hmm.
Remind us, our readers here, how the boar was made in the first place, because Demandred's thinking how stupid it was that they made this boar, and then how it got sealed, blocked up.
So we saw in one of the visions of the past Aiel, this whole like science experiment of some sort that didn't go well, and they bore through reality a little bit, and there's the dark one. Skip forward a bit, we get through that war of power and all that jazz, and we got LTT, Luz, Theron, Telamon. I've recently learned that when I refer to him as LTT, Rachel thinks it's funny. It sounds like it's going to be a BLT or something. I don't know, but
funny, yeah.
It makes her laugh every time. Anyway, LTT and his 100 companions, all men, male channelers. Were they actually 100? Who knows? But that's what they called themselves. They went without the support of the female Aes Sedai, and we're like, hey, yo, Dark One, let's seal you away. And it worked, kind of, but also not. And now everyone who's a male channeler goes mad. Thanks, Dark One. Did I miss anything important?
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. We do get the comment also from Demandred that this block, this seal on the boar, it is thinning. So the Dark One's presence is even more strongly felt now than it used to be. Demandred then, I'm here. I'm ready to talk to the Great Lord of the Dark. So he dismisses Shadowhuran and notices dude doesn't go anywhere.
No.
What is with this Myrddraal? But before he can do anything else or think anything else, he hears the Dark One's voice right in his head. It's not like heard in his ears. It's like a psychic whammy that just totally overwhelms him. And they have a conversation. Now, we learn some things from this conversation. First of all, we learn the Dark One is not omniscient. Demandred never knows just how much the Great Lord has perceived about the world versus how much he has to learn by calling people to him, like Demandred.
To a certain extent, like, this makes sense. We already knew that, like, ravens are called the Dark One's eyes. But we also knew they had to actually get back to Myrddraal to report in what they saw. So it's not like ravens just, immediately, this is a security spy camera, deep state surveillance that the Dark One is putting out there. So we know there are limitations already. This is just elaborating it.
Here's a good one. We know the Aes Sedai have their eyes and ears. So does the Dark Lord. We learn here confirmation that Ravine is dead. Now, of course, we know how Ravine is dead. Remind our people. That's from the last book.
A really, really, really big balefire beam from Rand.
We also learn Lanfear and Asmodean have vanished with no trace. How did that happen? Again, we know from the last book.
Lanfear we saw get tackled through an archway, never to return, theoretically. Thanks, Moraine. Unfortunately, she went with. Asmodean got stabbed in a closet, a pantry. He's just, like, dead. We don't know exactly what happened, but we know he was like, and then he's dead.
Yeah, we'll talk about that stabbed thing in just a moment. Grendel...
I don't think it was actually worded that he was stabbed, but it's always just, like, in my brain is like,
but the wording here, coming up in a moment, we're going to talk about, because I think it reveals exactly what happened to Asmodean. But One more thing that's mentioned here. Demandred says Grendel reported Moghedien failed to make a meeting that they had arranged. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, as he's reporting to Demandred, Ravine dead, Lanfear and Asmodean vanished, Moghedien missing. All those things happened yesterday. Coincidence? No. Now, we, of course, know what happened to Moghedien, but we'll talk about that later, because that's coming up later in the prologue again, a reveal about that. So let's
We
save that.
also know, to an extent, it all kind of is coincidence. Which makes me go like, hey, the wheel weaves as it wills.
It's like there's a pattern, man.
It's almost like there's a narrative arc that we try to make things line up in ways that are compelling.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Carrie dropped in Discord. Spider Girl is MIA. That's a good way to describe Moghedien.
It's correct.
Right. The spider. We learn from the Dark One's words here that Asmodean and Ravine, I'm saying this, that they both died by balefire. That's how I read what's here. Here's the specific quote. He's saying this right in Demandred's head. The chosen dwindle, Demandred. The weak fall away. Who betrays me shall die the final death. Asmodean, twisted by his weakness. Ravine, dead in his pride. He served well, yet even I cannot save him from balefire. Even I cannot step outside of time.
I think there is a very important line in there.
He put both of them together here.
No, he didn't.
And he said the final death.
He did.
Which is what balefire does.
No.
The final death. You're wiped out of existence.
Hear me out. He did, and he didn't lump them together. He lists Asmodean, and then he lists Ravine, and then he says he served well, but I can't save him from balefire. He never mentions what kills Asmodean. Maybe it's balefire, maybe it's not. This goes back to, I think Asmodean was severed from the Dark One. He can't bring him back. I don't think it has anything to do with how he died.
No,
but the Dark One will absolutely play it that way, because if the Chosen know they can be separated from him, that's a problem.
I think he was there's still claws into Asmodean. Asmodean knew what he was facing if he was ever caught by the Dark Lord now, because, he's betrayed him. He's serving the Dragon Reborn. I think he knew when Asmodean died. He knew.
I agree there were ties, but in the mental, emotional, there's trauma. There are ties, but the magical ties, the oaths, those things, that was severed. And we are gonna disagree on this. This is one of my hardcore theories that has enough in the books that it has legs, but I've yet to find a lot of people who will run with me on it.
Now, following this is a reminder in Demandred's head. He's thinking of the danger to the pattern caused by balefire. We've talked about that before. It was used heavily in the Age of Legends till everybody, both the good and the bad, realized this is literally ripping the pattern apart. The whole fabric of the wheel is disintegrating. We need to stop, or there's nothing left to win. Okay? Everything will be gone. But in the Dark One's mind, it is still fully an option. And he says to Demandred, will you use balefire for me? Now, Demandred gives the only answer. Yes, Lord.
Of course.
It's like, if you tell me to, yeah, sure. But he doesn't really want to. But he will. He will. That might be foreshadowing. But we won't say more about that right now. Then the Dark Lord says, all right, I'm going to paraphrase. Here's who gets to live. Here's who gets to die. Here's your orders. And then we fade away to somewhere else. We don't get to hear what the Dark Lord actually says.
Yeah.
Instead, we're going to jump to Nynaeve now. Nynaeve's point of view, where she's in Saladar. Remind us why she's in Saladar. What's that about?
Because this is the quote-unquote true White Tower in exile, which honestly is less the true White Tower in exile and more like, hey, a coup happened, but it was also kind of valid, and like You just said I don't accept it. So are you the rebels or are you the true White Tower? Either way, you're a split faction that isn't in Tar-Valon.
Right. Now she's in the middle of a session with Swan and Lyanna. What are they doing?
They're doing what Nynaeve's part, or rather, Swan and Lyanna's part of the bargain on the whole, hey, teach us how to use the dream rings while you're also teaching the Aes Sedai, because, like, hey, we also are going to do this even though we're not supposed to. And Nynaeve was like, okay, that's fine. I want to study you. You guys were stilled. I want to study that. I want to see, is there a way to fix this, to heal this? Because it's such a taboo subject, it doesn't get studied. And so, is there a way? Maybe, but it's so icky that people have just stayed away from it for so long that there's been no progress.
Nynaeve clings to the belief that nothing short of death is unhealable. Okay? She should be able to fix the stilling if she can understand it. And yeah, so exactly when Swan tried to basically blackmail her into this teaching about Tel'aran'rhiod, Nynaeve flipped it and blackmailed her. And so yeah, now we're seeing it. The studying is going on. Swan and Lyanna are not comfortable with it. They don't want to see it, have this happen, but a deal is a deal. So
weird double-sided question for you.
Yeah.
It's a small tangent. Sorry. We say nothing short of death should be able to be healed, right? And we see that death is healed by bale firing the person who kills someone. Not really healed, but you undo things, right?
Yes, death is not healed. Death didn't happen.
You undo things.
It didn't happen.
So what happens if, like, someone stills someone and then you bale fire that person? Are they unstilled? Would that...
Absolutely. It never happened. That would be 100% true.
I'd be curious to see that. Maybe we'll have to pay attention in the books. Maybe it happens.
So again, Nynaeve's goal here is to figure out how to heal stilling. But Nynaeve still is blocked, okay? She doesn't have the ability to just channel. And right at this moment, she's not mad. She's not angry. She's curious and doing this work. So how is she actually studying these women? Well, this is where we have to bring in the fourth person in the room. Because we had Nynaeve and then Swan and Lyanna, but we also have Merrigan. Merrigan, who was that refugee woman with the 2 kids they picked up back, getting away from the White Cloaks and Massima and the crazy people, and who stayed with them all the way to Saladar. But Merrigan, we discover here, this is the person who was actually Moghedien.
It's a little on the nose. Merrigan, Moghedien.
Yeah, she didn't change her name all that much.
It worked.
It worked. And she doesn't look like Moghedien. She does, she looks different. She has a disguise, but it's totally her. At the end of the last book, Nynaeve had captured her in the dream and made her drink stuff so that she would be asleep.
Important to mention Forkroot specifically.
Yes, asleep and powerless.
Channeling.
And what happens to you in the dream happens to you in the real world. So then out in the real world, they went and found her, and she's wearing a collar. She's got a Damane collar. Nynaeve's wearing the matching bracelet. Remember, they had this, and they were studying it. Well, now they're freaking using it. They have collared a Forsaken.
This is awesome, badass, and
icky.
Awful. It's so messed up.
But Nynaeve is using Moghedien's power through the bracelet and collar to study Swan and Lyanna. Now, we learn a number of things here. First of all, we learn that Swan and Lyanna, there's something in there that Nynaeve can identify. She can see a place where internally, power-wise, they were severed. And it looks like a wound.
Exactly.
Just a power-based wound. You'd never be able to see it physically with your eyes, but you can sense something here. The point of severing.
And to an extent, if you can see an injury, if you can identify it, that does bolster the argument that you can probably heal it.
Right. Other things we learn in here. Let's see. Swan and Lyanna, they know who Merrigan is. They're in on understanding this is a Forsaken. This is Moghedien. And part of that then is Nynaeve takes the bracelet off and puts it on Swan, saying, feel, wear this. What do you feel? And Swan can sense Moghedien's power. Now, she can't make Moghedien channel. She can't channel with Moghedien's power. Okay, so something about being severed, even though she can sense Moghedien and, feel her emotions, her thoughts, and that she, could channel, she can't do anything with that power.
It's a fun, weird disconnect that reminds us that all Soldom are women who have the potential to channel.
Yes, we learned that back a few books ago.
And so Swan, with this on, is someone who had the potential and still can sense things, but she can't do anything with it because her avenue has been severed.
And Swan is like, see, what good is this? I mean, sure, I can use this icky thing and sense her, but I can't do anything. But Nynaeve is like, no. You need to understand, only people who can channel can sense that. So this says you still have latent potential here. And if I can figure out a way to fix what's wrong, you can still tap into the power. Now, Swan is just depressed. Lyanna's like, ooh. Yeah.
It does work on some assumptions that are assumptions based on things we've figured out that apparently the Shanshan Empire in the last 1,000 years didn't figure out.
Didn't want to figure out.
But also, we might be right.
Now, Moghedien is actually clearly surprised that Swan and Lyanna could sense something through the collar. She has already previously told Nynaeve, even in the Age of Legends, being stilled was not healable. It was like, no, that's an end of story case. And once you're severed, you're done. And even back then, women would off themselves. There's nothing coming back from that. It's the end. It's horrible.
I guess it's a good thing that we don't think the Age of Legends is the end-all of be-alls, and Nynaeve, being good Two Rivers folk, is stubborn enough to say, yeah, screw that.
Now, Nynaeve also has been questioning many of the things they get from Moghedien, because Moghedien hasn't suddenly turned over a new leaf and is joyfully sharing anything they want to know. She has to be forced to release crumbs of information, and if she can twist it in any way, she does. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt. But keep in mind, when you're wearing this bracelet and collar, you can sense if the person is outright lying. You can sense how they feel about what they're saying. So Moghedien, only because she's so skilled as this Forsaken, can make some of this hard, but she can only go so far. So when she literally has said, no, you couldn't heal this back in the day, Nynaeve believes it. Does not believe that that's necessarily true, but believes Moghedien believes it's true.
And may even believe that it is true it couldn't be healed back in the day, but not necessarily because it was impossible, just because it wasn't known.
And one other thing to add, another layer in here, is that they've already figured out Moghedien is crap about healing. This was not something she cared about. So she has very little knowledge or actual ability at healing, which is something Nynaeve wants to know about more than anything, and Moghedien's not much help there.
In a way, it's a little bit comparable to Elaine, who can't do much more than bruises.
Right. So they're in the midst of working through some of these things, talking about some of these things, when suddenly Elaine comes barging into the room, and they're all like, ah! Why are they so afraid when someone comes barging into the room?
Well, when you've got someone collared in the middle of an Aes Sedai camp, who isn't supposed to be known as someone who can channel, let alone a Forsaken, let alone all of the implications, getting just randomly interrupted by a random person barging in, there's a lot of going on there.
Now I'm going to back you up a step here, though. When you say you've got somebody randomly collared, there's no chain. Okay, this is just someone's wearing jewelry and someone has something around her neck. This does not look like it does on the TV show. Okay,
I
it is
agree
not
it
so
doesn't look like
obvious.
something on the TV show. I will also still say, though, we have not had explicit mentioning of any culture, and we've had a lot of description of clothing and jewelry. We've had no cultures that have described a collar or even a choker as an applicable piece of clothing or jewelry. So, like, is it possible? Yeah, but also, no, it is a little bit strange.
I think she's wearing this in plain sight, though. I think she is, because she's definitely wearing it all the time.
She is.
You
She
better
might be
believe
wearing
that.
some high necklines, something to make it fit in a little bit more. It's like it would catch an eye if it was just like, yeah, she's wearing a plain dress and this really nice silver collar.
Mm. Now, they don't want anybody catching them, all the four of them, though, having conversations like this and doing something that seems secretive. That could cause some questions. Okay. And, if the wrong Aes Sedai walked in, this could get complicated. But it's not the wrong Aes Sedai. It's Elaine walking in. And she's kind of, for a flicker of a moment, she feels bad when she sees how shocked they are. But then she kind of dismisses it. It's like, what are you guys worried about? Because Birgitta is literally on guard right outside the room. Nobody was going to come barging in unless Birgitta allowed them to come in. And, there are some people Birgitta couldn't have stopped, but she would have done something to give them a heads up someone's coming in.
And notably,
Elaine's
the fact
attitude.
that Birgitta didn't say anything with Elaine, it means Birgitta thought this would be funny.
Maybe. She does have a twisted sense of humor. But no, Elaine's barging in because she's irritated, upset. She's heard things about the greater world picture right now. And she wants to do something that the Aes Sedai are not going to let her do.
Correct.
Okay, so rumor has reached Saladar that Queen Morghese is dead. And
false, but people think it.
And Randall Thor has taken Caemlyn.
Kind of true.
Yeah. Many tie those two rumors together to say the Dragon Reborn killed Queen Morghese and took over Caemlyn.
Doubly false. Not dead, wasn't killed by Rand, even if was.
Now, Elaine does not believe Rand killed her mother. Good. Even though, thinking back to the last book, Rand feels very guilty, feeling responsible for Morghese's death.
Yeah,
again,
but
we know she's not dead, but he doesn't. Elaine feels a need to go to Caemlyn. Even feels her duty demands it, and this is the primary reason she's saying the Aes Sedai need to let her go. If her mother's gone, the people need Elaine to be there as the daughter heir to step in, to bring back order, not to just let Rand do whatever he's going to do.
There's a certain disconnect of information here that Elaine doesn't really understand how messed up things got under Lord Gabriel, to where,
no, totally.
To be completely honest, things are gonna maybe be more stable under Rand because everyone's terrified of him than they would be under Elaine trying to make things right again.
Now, there is zero chance that the Aes Sedai, and Swan is telling her this, zero chance the Aes Sedai are going to allow her to go back to Caemlyn right now.
No.
For one thing, she is still an accepted. She needs to complete her training. They're not going to let her go off. But even more so, Randall Thor has already taken over Cairhien, Tyr, has the Aiel behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Caemlyn, and if he gets his hands on the daughter heir, pretty much he'll have all of Andor too. That's way too much. No. So,
I think those are all valid reasons that the Aes Sedai would absolutely cite, and it's also complete bullshit. The reason they don't want Elaine going back to Caemlyn is because it's too close to the other part of the tower, and a powerful pawn, a piece that they have on the board, that could suddenly become a public figure and be used by Elaida and the tower in Tar Valon would do a lot to undermine the credibility of this tower in exile.
That is an interesting take.
But they'll never admit that.
No, they never admit their true intentions. We're going to talk more about that in just a moment, too. Other things that Elaine has heard about and that they kind of in general know as well, but it has her stirred up. There's rebellion in the western portion of Andor. What's that about? We know what that's about.
There's not really rebellion so much as the people who you haven't been successfully taxing for generations have decided, yeah, Lord Perrin.
And rightfully so, because they were attacked by hordes of Murdril and Trollocs, and no one's there to help.
No aid from Andor. They got pretty much no aid from the White Cloaks, who supposedly were there and really just antagonized them.
White Cloaks suck. White Cloaks
for
suck.
themselves with the help of an Ogier, a blacksmith who was born and raised there, maybe some wolves every now and then, and a couple Aiel. And well, let's not underrate Fael's persuasive charm uniting the other towns.
So Elaine is not at all happy about rebellion happening. That's another reason she should be back in Caemlyn. But also, there's this whole to-do that Rand has declared an amnesty for men who can channel and encouraging them to come to him in Caemlyn.
Yes.
Now, why would the Aes Sedai have an issue with that?
I mean, Aes Sedai have maybe been like having as their policy, men who can channel, go mad and kill people and destroy the world. We gentle them, except for the Dragon Reborn, who we'd like to put in a little box until the last battle. And there's been some contention between different factions of the Aes Sedai of what to do with the Dragon Reborn. But all other male channelers, they're like, no, the world's better off without them. The Red take it so far as to actually act upon that, but pretty much everyone agrees on that.
More things we hear about here. The sisters in Saladar, you said they are the tower in exile. They've actually now created a Hall of the Tower in exile. So they've got, they've created this meeting with leaders for each of the Aja, except one.
To be fair, to give them some credibility here, some of the sitters in their hall, I believe, were sitters in the tower pre-split. So we do have some sitters
or past
from pre sitters. And exactly, we have some sitters in both halls of the tower that are legitimate, and there are some in both that have been since the schism. So there is a valid argument to say either one is the true Hall of the Tower.
Now, this Hall of the Tower in Saladar, they're mulling over who to raise up as a rightful Amerlin to challenge Elaita's false claim to the title. But they haven't made up their mind yet who to do that, who to raise up.
Now, the Hall of the Tower got a little funky because, was it sketchy? Yeah. Is Elaita technically the rightful Amerlin? Kind of, yeah.
I will throw a leadership truism in here. You're only a leader if people choose to follow you.
True. I'll throw a fantasy truism at you. If you kill enough of the people who disagree with you, you're in charge.
Everyone left is going to have to follow you. Aes Sedai can't kill people unless they're actually dark friends or
their
threatening their life.
Can.
Remember?
Warders can. Black Aja can. I'm not saying
there is no Black Aja.
I'm just saying there are avenues.
The Hall of the Tower will never allow Elaine to fall into Rand's hand. We've talked about that before. Instead, the Tower is planning to send a delegation to the Dragon Reborn. And Elaine is not about to be a part of that. Other things they've learned. Moraine is dead. That information has come to Saladar. And she went out taking Lanfear with her. So, cool. And in some way, Moraine is being spoken about amongst the Aes Sedai and Saladar kind of in hushed tones, like, ooh,
I mean,
Moraine, Now
to be
they couldn't
fair,
stand her before, but now she's
yeah,
like some superhero Aes
now
Sedai.
that she's not going to be a problem, we could be like, hey, a blue took out a Forsaken or two.
Yeah.
So, of
But
course, they're going to use that.
this is part of the problem and why they're talking about sending a delegation, that they need to do this now, because with Moraine gone, she was the influence the Aes Sedai could have on Rand. Now he's growing powerful. I mean, since that, he took over Camelin. Too quickly, he's becoming so strong with no one guiding his steps, no one near him that they feel they can trust. This is a problem.
There
We've
is a
got to solve that.
vacuum in the advisory role there. And I'm not going to go into any sort of spoiler or details, but I am going to say in season 2 of the Wheel of Time show, we've gotten a number of name drops that I have loved that have kind of confirmed something that I think will be happening eventually.
Okay. Swan's thinking is they can't let Rand grow too powerful before he does come to accept the counsel and guidance of the Sisters of Saladar. But at the same time, they dare not hold him back from growing stronger, lest he be unprepared to deal with other Forsaken who come at him, as well as to be ready to face the Dark One at the last battle. The prophecy dictates he's got to do these things, so gotta let him do that.
Gotta let him cook.
Right? Swan and Lyanna are aware, therefore, then the Hall is choosing this embassy and that they've picked 9 or are picking 9 sisters to approach Rand. What's the significance of choosing 9 as the number?
Sorry, I'm lost track of where we're at. Keep going for a second here.
Okay. Carrie had jumped out of Discord for a moment because the internet was acting up. And look, Zach's brain is acting up too. Sweet. Maybe you should jump out of body for a moment and then come back in.
I see a potential guess that Carrie says, and I'm going to say no, but also
no.
maybe.
No, 9 is the number that they picked because it's significant enough to show him honor, that we would send 9 sisters. Normally, we'll just send 1 sister to a king. We're sending 9 to you, but not so many that you have to be worried, because 13 is the magic number. 13 sisters can shield and, totally cut off a man from the power.
Notably, it's important to mention a couple of little things that I think we've heard whispers of here and there, little tidbits, but I'm just going to highlight them. It is not necessarily necessary to use 13 to
Did you really
gentle
say
a man.
It's not necessarily necessary?
Yeah, I did, and you can deal with it.
Dude.
Look, I've been drinking, okay? Point being, you might be able to do with fewer. 13 gives you your best chance because 13 is the number that women can be in a circle together sharing their power and therefore have the most power to take on a male channeler.
And whether it's true or not, they have said it before in the books. They believe it. 13 is the number that no man can withstand. If you have 13 sisters linked coming at you, that is powerful enough to shield any man.
And 1, that might be true. 2, it might not be. But 3, if it's not, we saw last book that Rand's limitations right now are pretty much limited by what he thinks his limitations are. And if people have been telling him for the last couple of years of him learning he can channel, that 13 Aes Sedai could shield and gentle him, then it's probably true.
And we have heard that already. Rand, that information is in his head. He does know 13 is bad news. It's an unlucky number. Stay away from 13 sisters. Now, we also hear right at the end of this conversation with Elaine, Swan drops the bit that Min is going to go with. So Elaine can't go. Oh, but we're sending Min. And Elaine leaves in a huff. Nynaeve was like, that was really nasty. Why would you drop that information like that with her? Okay, what's the deal? Why is Min going along, and why is it nasty to have shared it with Elaine?
Look, they might both have the hots for the same guy.
Yeah, totally. And everybody knows it in this little group. And Swan's like, it's better they duke it out here now than to let just two women continue to love the same man.
Now, notably, we say let them duke it out here and now. Min's kind of reconciled with it a little. Something about seeing certain prophecies and things. It still sucks, but like.
But it's easy to be reconciled when none of you can be around the guy. Now Min's gonna get to go hang out with Rand, and Elaine can't. That's a new level of tension in this relationship.
Yeah.
Now, Min is going along not just because Swan's being petty about the love triangle. It's about Min is going to go and spy on him.
Yeah,
because Min's been working for Swan for a while.
Quote unquote used by the Aes Sedai and by Swan. Both of them trying to use her for like the same purpose, but both thinking they're going to use her but not let the other one use her. And Min's kind of going, well, I mean, if it gets me by Rand, I'll let them think they're using me. That's okay.
Yeah. Now, of course, we also know Min has a talent, which these women here know about. None of the other Aes Sedai know this talent. Her going to be around Rand, he knows about the talent because she's told him.
Yeah.
So that could be useful.
And notably, talent with a capital T. We're talking about Min's visions, that she can see things, images around people, and sometimes interpret things of the future.
And something that's really key about those visions, she's not seeing possible futures. She's always seeing the future. When she sees it, it's locked in. It's going to happen.
I like to think to a certain extent, she does maybe kind of see possible futures. And that's where I'm like, when she knows what something she sees means, she's tried to change it. She can't. It is true. But there are sometimes she sees images and she can describe them, but she doesn't really know what they mean. And maybe that's where there's a little bit up to debate. Not a whole lot of wiggle room, just a little bit, because she doesn't know what it means.
The fact that she doesn't know what it means doesn't mean there's wiggle room. It's established. If she's seen it, it's going to happen. But what does it mean that it's going to happen? How is it going to happen? What's its implications? She may not know any of that.
I think we disagree on a semantic difference as opposed to an actual difference, because I agree with you, it is going to happen. But if someone else hears what she says and interprets it one way,
interpreting wrong,
but they're wrong, then in a way, it feels like it changed. It didn't.
It never changed, right?
But that's not really how it's perceived.
Now, separately here, we also learned that Nynaeve, Elaine, Swan, and Lyanna have all been taking time with Merrigan, Moghedien, pumping her for information, trying to glean stuff from her. And this is why Swan and Lyanna actually know Moghedien is the true identity of Merrigan. Because originally, only Nynaeve, Elaine, and Birgitte knew this. Swan and Lyanna were brought in because as initially the ladies are trying to get information out of Moghedien, they're not just hearing things you can do with the power. They're getting intel, dark friend plots, things about other Forsaken plans and stuff. Things that, okay, the sisters should know this, but there was no way that Elaine and Nynaeve could just go to the sisters and say, we've learned this, and be credible, heard,
however,
or not suspicious.
There is a way to have Swan and Lyanna and their various eyes and ears in the world, in the tower even, have trickled in little things. And hey, they're freed from the oaths. They can lie. about the
Yes.
source of this information.
This is where Swan and Liana had kept their significance and importance in influencing what's happening with the Aes Sedai, because they were allowed to keep their access. They are the source of information for the rest of the sisters. So if they just happen to slip in something else they heard,
Mhm.
now the source is actually Moghedian, but like you said, they can lie. This came through the usual means, but it's credible because it's coming from Swan and Liana, who can't lie. The rest of the Aes Sedai think
Yeah,
it's been perfect.
it may be that it was a petty reasoning why they initially were like, "Hey, I've got my spy networks and I'm not sharing them, but I'll be your contact." But again, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills, and it gave a very good opportunity to weave these different threads together without thrusting it out of Nynaeve and Elaine's control.
Nynaeve and Elaine's control?
To a
Did you
certain
say who you
extent,
meant?
that they didn't have to be like, "Hey, Morgan's Moghedian to the new hall of the tower."
Ah,
They
okay.
had another avenue.
Now, there was a risk in bringing Swan and Liana in because Moghedian is guilty of some horrific things as a Forsaken. The penalty is death. She should be executed right now,
Yeah.
but she's an asset. If they can use her, get information out of her that they couldn't get from any other source. Now, that's how Nynaeve and Elaine feel. But what if Swan and Liana had felt different? That was a risk. But it turns out, nope, Swan and Liana, they see the same thing. But they also agree we can't let anybody else know. Because for every Aes Sedai who may say, wow, we got to use her, there'll be 10 others going, burn the witch! Burn the witch!
And let's bring in the elephant in the room. There's a solid chance that at least one of the Aes Sedai and Saladar is Black Aja. And if Black Aja hears, we have a Forsaken who's telling us things, they're either going to try and free them because of some misguided, oh, I'll be rewarded, or they're going to kill them.
Now, getting information out of Moghedian, a little tricky. We've said that. They could be making her, they could torture her. The TV show has actually done a good job of showing how that can be done with this, but the books are accurate too. You can use the bracelet and collar to physically torture someone, but that's icky. They don't really want to do that. Nynaeve doesn't want to have anything to do with that. So instead, they have used the threat of, you will work with us or we'll turn you over to the others and you'll be executed. Turns out Moghedian really doesn't want to die.
It's almost like turning to the Dark One to save your own skin means that self-preservation is a really big motivator for you.
Yeah, turns out. Okay, now we switch POVs again. We're jumping to Elaine as she's left this conversation and she's headed off somewhere and she's beelining to get to a person she needs to talk to now. And that would be
Min.
Yeah. She's going to Rand. So she's got to have a conversation with her. Along her way through Saladar to find Min, we get some other little nuggets of information. Prologue does nuggets. One, the reminder that Gareth Bryn, the former leader of the armed forces in Caemlyn, is now here in Saladar and is raising up Saladar's army for the sisters. Elaine knows him because, he was always around in Caemlyn when she was a little girl. He was a little more than just around, though. What was his history there?
He might have been shacking up with her mom and the captain of her guard at the same time.
At the Love Shack. Yeah. Elaine has been revealing, we learn, discoveries to the Aes Sedai sisters, things she and Nynaeve are figuring out, and it's been raising up their status amongst the sisters. Now, most of what they're sharing, they've actually been eking out of Moghedian, but they play it off as, this is something we figured out, and they're like, ooh.
Every now and then there is a little bit of something, and I kind of hone back to the fact that, Elaine's pretty clever. She kind of figured out some of how the Adam was working and these various things. She does figure things out, and even off of Mogideon's information, sometimes figures things out for herself.
One of the most impressive things Elaine figured out for herself was how to make ter'angreal. And she is a celebrity for this because no one's been able to do this since the Age of Legends. It's a lost art. And she's trying to help others learn how to do this. Elaine's actually kind of frustrated with herself because, for every 5 attempts she makes, maybe one of them works and maybe doesn't even work real well. But the other Aes Sedai are like, girl, no one's been able to do this at all. You're
like,
fine.
Look, you at 20% is better than 3,000 years at 0%.
Yes. Now, a lot of the discoveries that Nynaeve and Elaine have made through Mogideon, they actually haven't passed along.
Yeah.
They're only giving the things they figure won't hurt them. So,
things that will
one
help,
of the things
but not be suspicious.
One of the things they've learned is how to invert a weave. And this one, no problem. We'll share this with everybody. Do you remember? Can you tell people what inverting a weave does?
I mean, to put it very basically, it hides it. It makes it invisible to people who are channeling. Usually you can see weaves that are there. Even if you tie them off, you can just see them floating around. But if you invert it, it just kind of flips it inside out and you can't see it.
It's invisible now. Yeah. They have learned how to hide your ability to channel, because that's something we learned all the way back in the Eye of the World. A channeler can sense other people who can channel, but there is a way you can hide that. They're not sharing this one.
Huge.
It is huge. Why haven't they shared this one, though? There's a specific reason.
I don't know off the top of my head. I think they should have.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a huge reason they haven't. Mogideon is using it.
Yeah.
If they reveal how to sense when somebody can channel but is hiding it, they could find Mogideon right there in the camp in Saladar. The gig is up. The jig is up. The jig is up. Yeah. So
I hear you. I see you. Both of them have had enough time with the Shan-Chan. They should understand the clear and present danger and going, hey, maybe being able to hide the fact that you can channel would be a good thing.
Yeah, maybe. They're not thinking that far ahead, unfortunately.
They probably should.
They've also learned how to mask your appearance, which is what Mogideon's doing all the time. She doesn't look like Mogideon. She looks like someone else. That's a weave that has been inverted, and they're not showing how to do that one. They've also learned how to do compulsion. They're not using that one. They all agree this is
it, and they're not going to
totally
teach people it either.
But yeah, they're not sharing because, I mean, oh yeah, we figured out how to use compulsion. That'll go over like a lead brick.
That being said, they're still going to keep it in their back pocket, and this is that little bit of I hate comparing them here, but it's a little Leandrine of if you've got that little tool, having it to be able to use it but not share with others can help. You probably won't use it very often, but it's so tempting if it's really, really important to maybe use it.
We learned that many sisters, because of these discoveries, are quite impressed with Elaine. Sort of Nynaeve, but not as much because of Nynaeve's block that they're all aware of. She's got to get over that block, and they're trying to see she gets through that block. But Elaine, there's no block. They're like, you need to be raised up to Aes Sedai. And so as she's going across the camp, she does run into 2 of these Aes Sedai who, have a quick conversation with her, and they point blank say it. As soon as we're there, we get you tested, we get you on that oath rod, you should be full sister. That's cool. They're also like, now don't let your head swell. But quit beating yourself up for, having some struggles with ter'angreals. You're doing awesome.
Now, I think there's a little bit of a funky, interesting thing here that we won't really see until later on, and so I won't go into the specifics. However, while the oath rod is necessary to raise sisters, and that's a whole thing, and it's we're going to wait because of that, there doesn't seem to be any emphasis on actually like preparing Elaine or Nynaeve to be tested to raise. So it kind of feels empty when some of the sisters say this. It's like, yeah, this should be a thing that happens, but no one's actually moving towards that.
There's no point in preparing someone until they actually have the chance to be able to do it, is what they're thinking.
I think that's an excuse.
Ha. Elaine, another thing we learn, this is in her thoughts, she's committed to being Green Asha now. Okay, this comes from her thoughts because they just talked about we need to get you raised to full sister. Now, she definitely needs to be Green Asha, is in her mind. Why?
2 reasons. 1, she would like to marry a warder. Most notably, Rand as her warder.
Okay.
2, she's already got a warder, and Greens are the only ones who take 2. Now,
That's right.
She's not supposed to have one, and it's very hush-hush. Very few people know she has one. But Birgitta has been bonded with the warder bond. It already exists.
And of course, flashback, Elaine did that to her to save her life.
Yeah.
And it worked. Yeah. But it's still illegal.
Yeah.
For bad things would happen to Elaine if it gets discovered Birgitta is her bonded warder. It's
which, like, notably, we haven't even gotten to that in the Wheel of Time TV show. But Rach and I have already been talking a little bit about warder bonds and things, especially as we've seen it. She also agrees it's kind of rapey.
If it's done against someone's will.
Exactly.
Absolutely. What else do they need to keep secret about Birgitta, by the way?
She might be a hero of the Horn, and like that's not okay. And like usually they get born and normal, but hey, a Forsaken shunted her into the real world from the world of dreams. Oh, and hey, the heroes of the Horn chill in Teleron Riyadh. I guess that's the thing people don't know.
There's so many secrets, and Elaine is feeling the weight of that. I mean, Aes Sedai keeps secrets all the time, but the more they get embedded into this stuff, Nynaeve and Elaine find they have to be keeping so many secrets. Ugh. Elaine is certain that as she and Nynaeve have revealed some of their discoveries, some of these Aes Sedai aren't surprised. They're like they knew some of these things already, which again, secrets everywhere. We're revealing these new things we learned from a Forsaken, and some of you already knew how to do this and just didn't tell anybody. It's like,
Elaine, some of those are probably Black Aja, but that's a secret too.
There is no Black Aja.
Exactly.
Elaine finally finds Min, who's glad to see her, sorta. See, Min just learned earlier this morning that she's going to be going to Rand, and she's been like, I need to go tell Elaine. This is awkward now. And she was like, what do I say to her? How do I approach her? So, okay, Relief, you're here. Now we have to talk. She shares, Swan's sending me to her to spy on Rand, to report back. Then she even gave me names that in Camelin, that I part of the Eyes and Ears network. I can report to these people. And Lane's response is, and you won't, of course, which Min, you can just see relieved. It's a nice of course not.
Like, hey, they're on the same page here. We're going to use that excuse to get there. But yeah, no.
We're Team Rand, man. Side. We're Team Rand, yeah. Now, we're reminded here, Min and Elaine have actually grown very close. They're like sisters. They happen to both love Rand. There's a little awkwardness with that, but they don't want that to come between them. They genuinely care for each other. They are tight. But now, Elaine's feeling a little jealousy.
Truthfully, both of them could use some time amongst the Aiel, where we've already seen a custom and culture that prioritizes your sisters over the person you're with. And then even is like, hey, you want to be with me? You got to be with my sister too.
Now, again, Elaine is reminded of secrets because Min's talent, which we've already talked about, no one in the Aes Sedai camp knows about that talent, except, again, Nynaeve and Elaine and Swan and Lyanna. They're the only ones that know about this. Birgitta doesn't even know. But Min doesn't know about Brigida. She literally makes a comment about Brigida. Does she really think she's like Brigida, the hunter, the hero of the horn?
Don't
I
worry, Min.
mean,
She
it's
doesn't
kind of
think she's
weird.
like the hero of the horn. No, she doesn't.
And Min, they haven't brought her into the circle of knowledge about Moghedian. Doesn't know. Secrets. But Elaine then does ask Min to do something. Okay, fine. You're going to get to go be with Rand. I want to be with Rand. I can't. Will you take a letter to him?
Yeah,
And my
'cause
first
letters
thought
have
was,
worked
oh
out
boy, here we
so
go.
well for you in the past. You
An
want to send
Elaine
two?
letter.
You want to send 2 letters telling totally different messages?
Oh my goodness. Min's like, of course I will. Elaine does ask something else of Min. She says, you told me about that viewing thing where 3 women are going to all be connected to him, all love him. Don't tell Rand that. don't tell that. I mean, he doesn't need to know that. That's probably not good. It'll go right to his head.
Which one?
Oh, dude. Whoa. I am not. Okay, I got to say that. I'm not touching this.
I've been waiting on that all episode.
Yeah. Now, Min and Elaine, they are 2 of these 3. They still don't know who the third will be. Of course, we know who the third is. But Min assures her, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it's hard to know how Rand would react, but we'll keep that between us. Now we jump to one more point of view. This is the last one we're going to cover from the prologue today. And this is Faile. We had no Perrin or Faile in our last book. We get it right away in the prologue, though.
Look, to be
Faile
fair,
is here.
Am I excited to see Faile? Am I excited to see the 2 rivers and Perrin? Probably. Yeah.
We very quickly get to see this is a transformed 2 rivers. We're in Emond's Field, and Faile is holding court.
Interesting.
In a large manor house that's still under construction, bigger than anything else in Emond's Field.
The previous biggest thing was the Wine Spring Inn.
Then this is bigger. And Faile Nibashir Tiabara is seen as the Lady of the 2 Rivers, as Perrin is seen as the Lord. And she's holding court. People are bringing concerns, questions, things that need a decision made to her. And Perrin's seat right next to her is empty, which irks her a little bit. But he does not like being viewed as the Lord of the 2 Rivers.
No, it's a whole thing where she has been like, yeah, we saved ourselves. We did all this, all that. And like, I'm an outsider, but also like, I love you. We're married, all this stuff. And you should be in charge of all this. And Perrin's like, I don't want to.
She keeps working in the background
to
finagle him into positions where he has to make a choice, where he's acting on his responsibilities. And anytime he can get out of it, he does.
And to be fair to her, it's not just her manipulations. Literally all of the 2 rivers is also going, yeah, Lord Perrin, this makes sense. We want this. It's not hard work for her, save for manipulating him into positions.
I mean, Perrin is so annoyed at his Taviran-ness. He literally will make a suggestion to somebody, and they take it as an order. Yes, my lord. Yeah. And it's like, stop it!
He is stubborn like, as a young
right
bull.
And proper. All right. We learned some things of what's taken place since we were last with them. Emond's Field, the 2 rivers, they have swelled in population size due to refugees. I mean, there were a lot of people killed when the Trollocs and Myrddraal invaded. But now there's even more people in the area because of this inswell. Where have most of them come? It's from the west of the continent. What's driving them this way, Zach?
There's a couple of things, and we got to go back through a little bit of some history here. We go back to the beginning of the books. We've got this war in Gildan. That was all Loghain and all that mess. There's a lot of civil unrest even from that still that's driving a lot of people. Then we fast forward in time and we go, hey, the Shan-Chan invaded. And that was problematic, but there was also actually some stability. until Rand blew it up in the sky, and now we've got a bunch of people who are like, hey, I guess it's open season to call this no man's land ours now. And the common people get caught in the middle and often go, nope, I'm out. But then we
Yeah.
also go, hey, there's also this whole mess of the Prophet and the White Cloaks, and some people aren't really interested in that. And so it's a mass exodus from a lot of different places, so that not any one place is losing everyone, but a
Right.
lot of places are losing enough people that the Two Rivers is more than at capacity.
And the Two Rivers has something that a lot of those other lands don't have right now.
Two Rivers?
Safety. No, they all have rivers.
Oh, okay.
But there's safety. Okay, there is a lord and lady in charge,
Yeah.
protecting them. There is governance that's working.
There's even the establishment of, hey, we don't just theoretically protect you. We fought off a whole bunch of Trollocs. We literally protected this area.
So as these people come into the area and they hear about Lord Perrin and Lady Fail, they're like more than happy to offer their allegiance. You
And
have provided a safe haven. We
it
will do
doesn't
whatever
hurt
you say.
to
Let us
tag
stay.
on the reputation of Menetherin that a lot of people have forgotten about, but they love to have this legendary old empire that we could be a part of. That's shiny and not new, but cool.
To work to make things stay safe, there have continued to be patrols up into the mountains of Mist, the outlying regions of the Two Rivers, hunting down Trollocs. They don't find many anymore. Murdril are gone, but they do find a stray Trolloc still and, take care of them. They're keeping people safe. So the refugees love being here. They're stepping into all the holes that were left. So like farms that have been burned to the ground or abandoned and all the people from those farms are dead now, refugees are moving in. There's less people to do the work that's needed. Well, now all these people running businesses have a lot of new apprentices and people signing on. There's even new innovations coming. This is one of the things Fail deals with when she's holding court. Good old Sen Bui comes, the Thatcher comes before her, wanting her to fix a problem. Well, apparently one of the guys who's come in from out of the area is an expert at building slate roofs. This is competition. Sen Bui is not happy.
It's also
Fail's
better than Thatch.
Fail's like, free market, dude. But she doesn't just say that. She says, Lord Perrin and I did choose Thatch for the manor house. We're showing you our support and respect. Yes, milady. Thank you, milady. But that stupid slate guy, calm down. Yeah. And, this is the kind of things that are happening. There's new people making fabric here that they never used to have. The stout two woolen wools. Oh, now there's fancier stuff. There's all sorts of innovations coming with these refugees. It's not the Two Rivers that the Emmons Field 5 left once upon a time.
No, but it does make a nice case for the benefits of taking in refugees, immigrants, and the new things that they can bring to your culture.
It's true. Other changes, Days Conger is the wisdom in Emmons Field. Not naive anymore. And there are new wisdoms in actually each of the towns now. And those are people that Fail works with to kind of try to manage things, keep things all positive and going the right directions. The Two Rivers is definitely rebuilding. They're working very hard at it. And Perrin and Fail are seen by all as the ones who are in charge. But Fail is the one doing most of the work to keep up appearances.
Yeah.
They have lost some of the young men of the village, but now I'm not talking about people who died to the Trollocs. I'm talking about the ones who survived, the ones who were riding out to battle with Perrin, and now that things have calmed down, they want more of what Perrin got.
There's a little bit of Perrin went off and saw the world, and, well, didn't Matt and Rand go with? And even for that extent, where did Egwene, Nynaeve go? They want their own adventures.
Yes, so that's become a thing now. People never used to leave the Two Rivers. Okay, some of these younger guys, they're out testing the waters. They're exploring the world.
And I'm sure some of them will do great, and I'm sure some of them will die horrible deaths.
Most probably. There is a concern in the Two Rivers over the odd weather. There's been no precipitation. At this point in the year where we're at, the first snows should have come up in the mountains, and there's nothing. It's completely dry. Everyone's kind of concerned about that.
Global warming is a big problem, guys.
Two other little tidbits we get here before we get to move on to Perrin is that Aram, the former Tuatha tinker who picked up a sword during the Prologue attacks, he's training hard now with Tam Althor, learning everything he can about the sword. He is all in. He has left his tinker roots behind. But the Tuatha, those tinkers,
yeah,
they are still there. They have a camp outside of Emmons Field. They haven't gone anywhere. But Aram and them, there is a divide.
I feel like saying Tuatha tinker is a bit of an oxymoron. Like, it's the same thing twice, but one of them's kind of pejorative.
I didn't call him a Tuatha tinker. I said Tuathans, the tinkers.
I used both phrases. Aram the Tuatha tinker.
Not to my knowledge. I may be stumbled over my words, but let's not get stuck in that. The last tidbit was Loyal. Loyal's still around. He's become a big favorite of the children of Emmons Field. You know, at first people were like, really big monster.
He's really good at uppies.
At what?
Uppies.
Uppies. What he's noted in the book is he's good at story time.
Yeah.
He's constantly seen reading books to the kids.
He loves his
books. That's adorable.
He knows his stories, and he's got a really good gravelly, rumbly voice that just is really soothing to listen to.
A little Barry White for them. You have no idea what that means.
He has plenty of patience for the children.
Okay. Now, at this point, holding court is over for the day. Fail goes upstairs in the manor house, up to the 3rd floor, where she finds Perrin. Out in a balcony, overlooking the town. He's actually watching Aram in his training with Tam. They have a little discussion. And Perrin shares he's troubled right now because he senses Rand needs him. She realizes he's saying this in a way that this is a Taviran thing. He's feeling it. So she's like, so what are you going to do about it? He says, well, I need to go to him. And then he shares, now, don't worry, I've made arrangements so that, Master Althor, Master Cawthon, that will be here to support you, help you with the mayors from the various other towns. You will be in great shape. I'm not just abandoning you. I've set things up. And she's like, she doesn't say it this way, but she's basically like, you idiot, I'm coming with you.
Parent,
there's no way you're leaving me.
Nothing from Tyr to sending her away when the Trollocs were attacking. Literally every time in your relationship, you guys are married now. Every time you're like, I gotta go do this thing, or you should get out of here because I have to stay and do this thing. It's well meant. It really is. We see that. But she's right. You're stupid.
Yeah. It's end of conversation, though. He's at least maybe learning that. Okay, she's coming with. And that's where we're going to stop for today. We're a little more than halfway through the prologue, but there's some stuff coming up we can't just fly through. So we will save the rest for our next episode. This is where we're going to say, if you're a first-time reader, don't stick around. Carrie, this is where you got to jump out. You're not far enough along yet. Don't stay, because we're going to spoil a couple of things now. Full book spoil as we move into the spoiler room. First-time listeners, thanks for being with us today, and we'll talk to you next time. For us, bye. There she goes. For us, let's play the graphic.
The spoiler room. The spoiler room.
Oh, I'd forgotten. I just need to let it play and it stops by itself.
Correct. That's what you discovered last.
Yeah, see, it'd been too long.
Many times ago.
All right. Let's see who's gonna go first. I'm rolling my shiny little one.
I got a nice little one. It's got a dragon inside of
Where
it.
is it? There it is. Here we go.
I think that means I'm going to go first. Based on
Yeah, I
that
got a
sound.
4.
I got a 15.
Yeah, you're definitely going first. Which thing you want to spoil? And let's make it quick because this is a long episode.
Yeah. I had a thing. Oh, I'm going to spoil a thing that has almost nothing to do with what we talked about, except for the fact that we talked about there being a vacuum in the advisors, especially Rand's Aes Sedai advisors. So I'm actually going to talk about the show for a second here. While I say they have been name dropping Cadsuane so hard this season.
Oh, she's
we
coming.
can't go an episode without her name getting dropped once or twice. If we don't see her by sometime late next season, I'm shocked. But realistically, season 4, she's got to be a main player already. Because she is a main player in these books, coming back from her retirement, being that new Moraine figure with a bit of a twist, her own flair and style.
Now, you did watch episode 7, right?
Yes, I am caught up. I'm
awesome. Your mother hasn't yet. We're going to watch it later today. But that was good. That was really good. Okay, so that's yours. Mine, I'm going to go tag off of Perrin, feeling the Taviran tug. This isn't the only time we've heard such things, and we'll have more times where Matt or Perrin realize they need to go to Rand. They need to be there to help. But this one, the payoff's the end of the book. I told you guys earlier, he's feeling the need to be there because Dumais Wells is coming, my friends. He knows what's going to happen. He doesn't know what, but he knows something's going to happen to Rand, or something is going on where Rand is going to need Perrin there. And when Perrin comes through, it's a big way, but it's foreshadowed right here. I need to get to Rand. My buddy needs me. Love it. Okay. There we go. That's what we got here for today. Let me run our outro, which I still haven't updated the sound on, but hey,
it's okay. It's there. It is what it is.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're loving all the interaction we're having with people. So here's the reminders, the ways to do it. Liking and subscribing the video is a huge plus. We appreciate it. But find us on Discord. Come see us on social media. Join us on Patreon, like Carrie, where she's here with us interacting live and making our episodes better. We have fun with people who want to be part of this. And we appreciate the financial support, helping us pay for all this that we do. Want to say anything else, Zach?
Come see us. I'm real.
Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you next time. He's a real boy.